I'm
Awesome. Sorry, I had trouble getting in for some reason.
yeah, I'm running a little late. We're gonna have just like an hour Q&A. I had a late meeting.
No
Okay,
problem.
1 second, guys. Hello, this is Charles. Yeah, I'm asking. You can call me. You can call me back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. Yes, that's correct. All right, thank you. That's correct. All right. All right. Okay, we got some people on here tonight. Some guests. Tina's joined the freight broker. We're doing Q&A a little bit tonight for about an hour. So,
Okay.
Mr. Nelson, as usual. Amy, how you doing, Amy?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Okay. Have you found any agents?
Mm, I just went to Detroit to meet a lady, but she's still pretty like green, so I don't know if she's gonna be a right fit. I'm trying to give her a chance.
Yep. Well, I got one of the students here that just joined MT. He's interested in working with a broker that would give him an opportunity as an agent.
Oh,
Um,
okay, great.
I can just have him reach out to you and you guys start that conversation. MT, are you listening to this?
Yes, definitely. I'm listening.
Okay, so in the under the website, you see my screen, right? Under
Yes.
ELLC services, you go down to affiliates and partners,
Uh-huh. Get her
and,
name.
and you can grab Y number 5 under brokers, number 5, YMMD LLC. That's Amy's company. You reach out to her, email
Okay.
or phone, and then you guys start that conversation. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Questions. I got some guests on here, so I want to people who will come in and have some curiosity of brokerages. I know Tina's here, so shoot your questions. Like people,
There's
go ahead.
how do you like how do you feel out like a freight agent? Um,
Okay, very good question. So you got people who they either have experience or they don't, right? They're coming in either with a what's called a book of business or with customers already. They may have worked for somebody formerly, or they're brand new, and you just got to train them in the way of your specific company and how you want them to run your TMS system and things like that. So, and then you have to set up in your brokerage specific criteria that you want that agent to have for your company to be successful, right? So I'm not sure if you have created a list of that yet for yours and or not, Amy. But yeah, filling the agents out. Well, the first thing will be a conversation with them um, to see where they are, how much knowledge do they have, if any, and if they say they have any knowledge, to you say, okay, well, how much knowledge do you have? What is your experience in brokering? Have you brokered anything before? What is a freight broker? You know, to see how much knowledge they have, they can answer that question. What is a freight broker? You ask them that and see what they say to that. The answer to that. And most people, they give you, a YouTube or kind of a generic definition of a freight broker. But someone who basically, a freight broker is someone who literally arranges for the transportation of freight. That's pretty much all a freight broker does. You arrange for the transportation of freight. You don't have the truck. You're not a shipping company, but you are the middle person. So you arrange for the movement of that freight. Does anyone disagree with that definition? And that's fine if you do. I just want to elaborate on it for you. But that's all a freight broker is. You just arrange for the transportation of freight. Now, how do you do that from start to finish? There's some intricacies involved in that, but the flat definition of a freight broker or a logistics provider, if you will, is the arrangement of transportation of freight. Does anyone dispute that or have a different definition?
No.
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 Okay. Okay, how you doing, Francis? I see some guests on here. People come in as guests. Francis, Tashina, and whoever Zoom user is. So to vet out your agents, so before you even get to the point of the agents, I guess, some people on here are people who do not have brokerages at all. They're curious about how to start one. Some people on here have a brokerage and are looking to consider bringing agents on. So a freight agent is someone who, for definition, so I can define it for someone who may not know what that is. A freight agent is someone who works under the broker's authority, and they bring in accounts or shippers, the accounts, and manage their accounts, right? So if I'm an agent under Amy's brokerage and I bring on a shipper or a customer or an account, then I'm arranging for the movement of freight under that account. I'm responsible. That's my account, right? And the agent and the broker has what's called a commission split, 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. And the 60-40, 70-30, the higher number in that split goes to the agent because they're doing the work. They're moving the loads. They're getting the tenders. They're putting the information into the TMS system. If there's no integration to automatically put it in there, they're manually doing that, and then they are processing that. Getting the carrier on board. The broker provides the authority. Some brokers provide the load boards. Some brokers require agents to pay for the load boards as a way of showing that you have skin in the game, that you're under that brokerage. Some brokers allow the agents to take their book of business with them or their customers with them when they leave the brokerage and decide to form their own brokerage. But while they are there are certain things that's required from the broker to the agent. So if you are considering joining a freight brokerage, you make sure you read the fine print in the agreement because you have to sign a contract to work with a broker if you are going to work as an agent. And if a broker considers you to work for them, coming in with no experience, and they'll give you some formal training because you have to learn and understand their workflow and their life cycle and their processes of their specific brokerage, because every brokerage is different. They do things differently. There may be different rules that apply, but the number one thing, of course, as an agent, you're gonna you're pounding the pavement as far as cold calling customers, using scripts or whatever method that you use to convince the customer that you are the agent or the brokerage that qualifies to move their freight. So whatever you do in that regard. So the agent works under the authority of the brokerage. Okay, they're using that broker's authority, leveraging that authority, especially if that brokerage is like a year or 2 years or older. It looks more credible for an agent to work for a brokerage that's more established. There's nothing wrong with working for a brokerage that's new, but it looks more credible for an agent to work for a brokerage that's established, especially when going in front of shippers to try to convince those shippers to give you loads. You have more credit worthiness. Your age of your brokerage is a little bit older, things like that. So hopefully that answers that concept of the difference between an agent and a broker. As far as qualifying the agents for bringing under a brokerage. Each brokerage will be different in doing that. You know, one broker may have one set of qualifications than another, but experience, communication, the willingness to learn, the willingness to listen is a good qualifier for between an agent and a broker. If you got someone under your brokerage that's not listening to you, that's not willing to learn, that could potentially be detrimental downstream a little bit later on down the line over time. So those are some of the basic qualifiers. And then you get into the meat and potatoes of your specific brokerage, because you as the broker, you have your brokerage set up and structured a certain way. So you would want an agent to just come in and learn that process that way, plug and play. You train them, of course, and then you hope that they follow your guide. And then as they bring accounts in there, accounts, customers, shippers, that's all the same thing. You know, a shipper is your customer and they have the loads or the accounts. So if you get an account with a shipper, it's pretty much the same thing. Okay. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Tashina Lee, get your hand raised.
That was Tina.
I see someone that has their hand raised. It says Tashina Lee.
Oh.
And then Tina. Tashina has Tina, you got a question, Tina?
Yeah, I did. I didn't want to cut her off, though. I didn't know. Yeah. When you're starting out and your ultimate goal is to have your own authority or work under your own authority, but you're not there yet. So you're learning as an agent, getting experience under you. How far can you process up to that point of obtaining your own authority? I understand you got your own business established, your LLC, you got your EIN number, tax information, you got your Duns and Bradstreet numbers that you need, web presence for your business. So is there certain steps you can go ahead and take, like getting an MC number, DOT number? Can you obtain those before and hold on to them while you're doing your experience and then get your own brokerage authority? Or do you say don't do any of that until you're absolutely ready?
Until you're absolutely ready, number one. And then number two, you don't want to incur those expenses while you're under someone else's authority as an agent. And then you try to activate your authority, you're incurring extra expenses. So why would you put yourself through that? Until you're absolutely ready to branch off, and I would say hold off on and paying those expenses and just continue to work as an agent under the brokerage until you're absolutely ready. You know, because you don't want to incur those extra costs, because there's costs involved in starting a brokerage. You have to have an authority. That's a $300 cost. You have to go to the fmcsa.dot.gov, fill out that information, whether as a returning entrant or a new entrant, and then you apply for a broker of property, right? There's a broker of, there's a broker of property, and then there's a broker of household goods. So you apply for a broker of property. You go through that process. You have to apply for you have to get a $75,000 bond, right? Either a surety bond or a trust fund. So trust fund is, a surety bond is based off credit. Trust fund is if you happen to have $75,000 sitting around in escrow somewhere, you can use all the $75,000 to cover your bond costs. The surety bond is almost like an insurance policy. You pay a certain amount per month to have the $75,000 coverage for your bond. So a BMC 84 is the surety bond. The BMC 85 is the trust fund. And having good credit on the trust fund, if you have a good credit score, because it's based off of personal credit, then it could be between a 2 and 5% charge on that, right? So 2% of 75,000 is 1,500. 5% of 75,000 bond is 3,750. So it's between 1,500 and 3,750. So $1,500 and 3,750 per year to have $75,000 coverage. So now if you divide that by 12, that'll tell you what your monthly costs will be. That's how that's figured out. It's based off your credit. If you have good credit, whatever that number that determines good credit, it puts you in that 2 to 5% range. And then you just take the 2% times the total of the bond, 75,000, or the 5% times the bond price, and that'll give you your annual range, 1,500 to 3,750, in between that. Okay. So after the bond, then you get your, you have to have a process agent. And the form for that is called the BOC3. Okay, you fill that out. What a process agent is every state has one. So if you're based in, I don't know where you're based at, Tina, but what state you're based in?
Missouri.
So you're in Missouri, but you got a load that's over in Georgia somewhere, and then you have one of your carriers under that load has some kind of accident or some kind of claim, or they have to serve papers to you. They're going to get a process agent, a process server to serve it. You know, that's all that is. Process agent, the BOC3 is just process agent, process service to serve you paperwork for legal things, okay? You need that, you need UCR, you need a UCR, Unified Carrier Registration, and nowadays you got to get insurance now. Most shippers are now requiring, it used to not be the case, but most shippers are now requiring brokers to have insurance, to show skin in the game, either general liability, contingent cargo, or what's called E&O, errors and omissions. So those are starting to come into play now too. So these are the base qualifiers to start up a brokerage. And once you become active and you get there's a 10-day period where someone can protest the fact that you've applied for a broker authority. And if no one protests, then after that time, then it becomes active and things like that. So, but yeah, I would wait until you're ready to do that because of all those costs involved, those costs that can be incurred involved in that. Work as an agent under an already established brokerage, learn the process and the workflow of moving that load from the time you get a quote or a load tender from a shipper, process that through your TMS system until the time you get a carrier onboarded to your brokerage and that carrier moves that load to the time that signed BOL or that POD is signed and given to you, the broker, and your factory company, if you have one, invoices the shipper or whatever. So from the time from tender to factoring, everything in between. So learn that under an already established brokerage that have moved loads, and you see that process. You do it over and over again for, like, let's say a year, 6 months, then everything's the same. The process is the same. The only thing that's going to change is you get different shippers and you get different approved carriers under your brokerage, but the process will be the same. So, and then once you get that process down, then you'll be able to say, okay, I'm ready to form my own brokerage. Let me go ahead and get my authority. Let me get my bond. Let me get my process agent, BOC3, UCR, and insurance. And then open it up. And then of course you got to have software, load board, TMS system, things like that. Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Questions? Who's next?
Yes, sorry. This is Tashina. I wasn't able to unmute before. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Myself and my brother are interested in building a freight brokerage, but we're not sure how, if there will be any conflict as far as splitting percentages once we're able to get carriers, and if there will be any conflicts as far as getting shippers. Will we have to do that separately? I don't have a lot of information on, right now we're gaining as much knowledge as we possibly can. So I'm not sure how that would work if we both wanted to be freight brokers and not work as separately, like one as a freight broker and one as an agent. Do you have any insight on how that would work if we wanted to pursue, if we both wanted to be freight brokers?
Why don't you guys just partner up and form one brokerage and work with each other?
Okay, so you can work under like one, I think they call MC number or something. You don't you wouldn't have to have two separate ones. Okay.
Yeah, you just call it, like, I don't know, brother and sister logistics or something like that, and just get
right
and get one. I just threw a name out there. Just get one. Just get one MC authority a broker authority, and
I see.
then hire agents under you guys, or just assign, form the company together, but then one person just act as a role of an agent, the other one as a broker, or you guys may have
Okay.
50-50 equity in the company, and then you guys hire agents.
I see. Okay. I wasn't sure that was something we were able to do, work under one MC number. And we're able to get the insurance and the surety bond and all of that stuff under one. We don't have to do separately.
No. Why would you? I mean,
Okay.
what? Yeah. What? Yeah. That's a rhetorical question. I didn't mean to ask it like that. I'm just saying.
That's okay.
So if you and your brother want to both open, well, do you guys have a name for it?
No, we don't have anything. We're actually at square one. We don't have anything. We're just gaining knowledge right now.
Okay, so let's stick with the brother and sister logistics theme. You guys both want to form a brokerage. You guys want to do it together like partners. It could be a partnership. You can even have your legal structure of your business to be what's like an LLP, a limited liability partnership, or just an outright partnership. And then both of you have equal 50-50 equity in that company, and just call it like brother and sister logistics or something like that, or brother and sister freight brokers. I'm sure you're going to come up with a better name. I'm just throwing this as an example. And then you just do everything down the middle as far as paying for the application, the OP1 form of the MC authority, which is the broker of property, through through the FMCSA or the DOT.gov site, doing the bond, either the surety bond or the trust fund, the process agent, all the requirements of starting a brokerage. You guys just, since you are a partnership, then you can, just go through that process together. You guys can learn it together,
Okay.
And then
Perfect.
once the authority becomes active, and then you going after your accounts or your shippers or your customers, starting that process. And then at the same time, working on getting your credit established, getting approved carriers to move loads once you get customer accounts, shippers. So, but you guys are at square one right now. So yeah, make it a partnership.
Okay. Makes perfect sense. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Amy?
So the lady that I went to go see about being my agent, she was kind of going back and forth with me about who is doing negotiation, and I was telling her, like, that's what I do. Like, she just gets the, helps bring in the shippers and things like that, and then when it comes down to like the money and stuff, she'll hand it over to me. But she was really trying to argue me back and forth about how this is not the way it's done. I just wanted to make sure I understood that where I'm supposed to be, because sometimes when somebody argues with me back and forth, I'm like, am I tripping, or are
So
they?
when she says that, so how much experience does she have to even make that statement? Was she ever a broker, or was she ever an agent?
I guess maybe diluted. She was an agent. She was an owner operator at one point, but she wasn't.
So some, I don't know if the ratio is, but if an agent gets an account, right, but they're under the authority of the broker, it could be, some brokers may give the agent a little bit of leverage as far as negotiating like the numbers and the rates and stuff like that, because it's their account and they're splitting the commission like 80-20, 70-30, 60-40, right? Other brokers may say, no, you just get the account and you manage the account, but let us do the numbers, right? So it depends on how now, if you are a new brokerage and you're starting out and you got agents coming in and you're new and they have no experience and things like that, then of course, as the broker, it's your authority and everything. You don't want to risk damaging your authority. So you should handle all the financial aspects and the numbers of your brokerage. If it gets to a point where your freight agent becomes seasoned enough and you've trained them enough and you trust them enough to handle at least that part of it, then that'll be fine. But that's starting out. I don't recommend it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But she was really concerned about like having to call them back with like a quoted rate and stuff, which I was trying to explain to her, like they're not gonna not consider you because you have to call them back. Like they're okay with waiting 15 minutes or so or whatever.
Right.
But
Well, you can. So an agent, let's say let's say you're the broker, which you are. I'm your agent, right? I land a big account, but I'm new to your brokerage. Even though I may have experience, you may have it outlined in your contract in such a way that, okay, whenever there's renegotiations, you can put the verbiage in there. Whenever there's renegotiations or anything like that, give me a call or email me and I'll tell you how to handle. Since it's your account, you're the face of the account. You're customer facing, so you're the agent. But run the numbers by me or run the scenario by me, and I'll tell you what to quote or what to tell the customer as far as the new numbers if you're negotiating. You can have that type of relationship as a broker and a broker agent. Since the agent is customer facing, they're the ones who either went to the customer locally and visit them at their facility and talk to them, or made a cold call on the phone. They're the voice or the face that the customer recognizes. So if you are negotiating, then yeah, you can do it that way and let the agent do it. But you still want to run that information by the broker just to make sure that everything's on the up and up. And then go back to the customer and say, okay, this is what we come up with. This is if negotiating either accessorials or negotiating the load tender, trying to get more money for the carrier, things like that. But you still want to run it by your broker because this is their authority. So.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So you want to structure that. So that's a good use case, though. That's a good example you said. So all you new brokers that just got your authority active, when you are considering bringing on agents under your brokerage, the contracts that you have, you may want to structure something like that in there that will either allow your agents to, since they are they're facing the customer, they're dealing with the customers on a day-to-day, they're doing the cold callings, you're in the background, you let them run under your authority. Put some type of verbiage in your contract that will like stipulate what they can and cannot do, or how often they have to get with you as far as, negotiating rates and things like that. So. All right.
How do you combat she's not the best listener, but she's not she has lots of experience in like the driving side of it, 10 plus years. And she knows like some things, but some things like she just doesn't know, but she's confident that she knows it. And how do you combat like someone under you like that?
You don't put them under you. What does your gut tell you? If your gut tells you not to deal with something like that, even though this person may have experience, but sometimes one good accolade or one bad accolade can outweigh all the good. So this person may have a lot of experience driving and know their stuff on that side of the transportation, but if they're not a good listener and you feel that vibe and that energy, then imagine them talking to a potential customer for your brokerage, and imagine how much negative publicity that could potentially bring to your brokerage. So are you ready? If you're ready to deal with that, then by all means do it. But if use your instinct, use your intuition and your gut. What your gut telling you, that first experience and that encounter with that person usually is the right one. The first reaction is usually the correct. So,
gotcha.
And there's so many other people out here who are agents. I mean, who want to be agents under a brokerage. I mean, we got one in here now, MT. So he wants to work with somebody. He's going to reach out. I think he's going to reach out to you.
Yeah, reach out.
So, but yeah, but when you first start your brokerage, you're probably going to be the only one pounding the phones and everything, you know, because it's your baby. So you got to get it up and get that foundation established, getting it run. And then at some point, you're going to say, man, I got 3 customers, I got 3 accounts that I'm trying to manage. I need to bring on some help at this point. So at that point, you want to structure some kind of a broker agent agreement in such a way that it meets all your qualifiers as well as disqualifiers for your brokerage. So every possible good and bad scenario, you want to put that in your agreement and address it. So once that dotted line is signed and now it becomes legally binding with the signatures, you will be satisfied with what you have on paper. So so throughout these trainings, we can go over every possible and conceivable scenario to get to that point, you know, as far as the relationship between the broker and the broker agent. Well, what happens if this happens? Or what happens if that happens? So what happens if a broker agent does this? Who does the onus falls on? Or what happens if a broker agent says that? Who does, you know, there's tons of scenarios you can put out to create situations to decide, you know, how do you want to structure your broker agent agreement, you know? So, right?
Yes.
So
Thank you.
And here's some things to think about too. I'm gonna put this out here. So what is a freight broker? We already know what a freight broker is, right? Arranges the transportation of freight. So now, as you new freight brokers, what makes you different than most? So this is something that you guys need to think about as a freight broker. What's going to make you different than most freight brokers? What are the attributes and traits that's going to make you, because there's tons of freight brokers out here, right? But what's going to make you different either in the eyes of the carriers, because you got 2 customers. If you don't realize it, as a broker, you have 2 customers, right? Your main customer is the actual shippers, right? But who's your other customer?
Your carrier?
There you go. Who said that? They said it like they was like unsure. The carrier? Wait a minute. Yes, the carrier. Yes, the carriers. They're customers too, because you have to satisfy both parties. You have to satisfy the customer so they can give you loads, and you have to satisfy the carrier by paying them good rates to move those loads. Because just because you get loads from customers, they still have to be moved, and you got to get approved carriers under your brokerage. They have to be willing to work with you under whatever circumstances, right? And then you got to pay them a good rate. So you got 2 customers you got to satisfy. So you're burning the candle at both ends, so to speak, right? So you got 2 customers. So what makes you different than most? And we're talking about brokers, right? Tashina raised her hand.
Yes, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but how accurate or how true is it that if you're a new broker that you should only carry cars, that you should only look into, because I was told that was the easiest route when you're first starting out, is that you should only look into shipping auto only. Is that true?
I've never heard that. I don't know if that's the easiest route. Because as a broker, you're talking about auto hauling.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how easy it is. That's the first I've heard that, honestly, that it's easier to be an auto. It's easier to be an auto hauler than it is any other type of freight, because you're hauling cars, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're brokering freight, you're brokering freight, whether it's cars, whether it's refrigerated goods, general freight, lumber, steel. The process is the same. You are arranging the transportation of freight, right? Regardless of what that freight type is, you still are arranging the transportation of it. So what makes one easier than the other? It could be the inner movable parts in that process. It could be, but again, that's the first time I've heard that statement. Okay. So no one's answered.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No one's answered my question though. What makes you different than most? So we know what brokers are. You know, they arrange for the transportation of freight, but what makes you different than most brokers? As new brokers, you would probably have to think about that. What qualities and attributes that you're going to, once you get your brokerage up and running and active, what's going to make you different than most brokers. And you can look at it from the perspective of your customer side, well, your accounts and your carriers. So what's going to make you different, you know, and you don't have to really answer that analysis, but it's something to think about, you know. I don't want to say the industry is saturated with brokers, but there are a lot of brokers out here. So that's an honest question, because if you go in front of a shipper, they'll ask you that question when you're trying to solicit them for freight. Well, what makes you different than all the other brokers that are trying to talk to me? And what kind of answer can you give them?
Well, I saw something, it was a new freight brokerage that said that they were unique because they were available to their shipper 24/7. Is that something that shippers normally look for in a new freight brokerage, is for you to be available to them no matter, you know, what time of day it is, I guess? I mean, is that something that would be unique?
Well, you have certain hours of the day that you operate as a normal business, but you still can be available, like have your phone available just in case a customer calls you, and you can provide that added service to your customer. An emergency or something like that. The customer may call you and say, "We got an emergency. Can it's like 9 o'clock at night. You at home with your family or whatever, and they text your phone and say, "Hey man, we got an emergency load or a hot shot load. Can you have a truck available? Can you handle this? You know, how soon you need it? Within the next few hours." And then now you got to perform as a broker if you want to continue to work with that shipper, or you want to just win some good points with that shipper. But those are like what's called one-offs. They happen every so often. They don't happen a lot. They happen every so often. Those are one-offs, right?
Okay, that's what I wanted to know too.
But it still gives you an opportunity to kind of like, you know, what makes you different, right? It answers that question. It kind of puts you in a different class because your customer now can rely on you, right? You've proven your reliability, and you've proven that you communicated with them when they reached out to you. You were available when they needed you, right? Whether or not you can solve that problem, you still answered the phone, and at least that, you know, goes a little bit with the customer. You know, at least I reached you. You may not have trucks available, but at least I was able to get a hold of you to at least see if you had trucks available.
Right.
Yeah. Tina had her hand up.
To follow up on what she just said in regard to that, and coming at it from a driver's point perspective at the moment, I've had loads where brokers would ask me during my load, "Will you download this app?" And they had a system set up in their, I guess, brokerage that would allow them to track my travels from the point A to point B, from picking up the load and getting it to the shipper. They knew where I was at any point in given time while I had that load on my truck. And
Right.
so are you familiar with any of that that would be something to look into as a broker, that would say, "Hey, I can tell you where your product is and it's in good hands." Or if it's delayed, "Well, I know this road was closed due to a major accident or for hazardous weather issues." Is that something you're familiar with that we could use in our toolbox?
Yeah, that's a comment. So tracking software for brokers on the carriers is a pretty common theme. One of the major tracking softwares is called MacroPoint, and you know, you can either download it on the Google, the Play Store, or on the iPhone. There are apps you can download, and the broker connects with the carriers while they're under that load. Sometimes they make it a requirement in the carrier packet on the rate confirmation that they need to track them, because when they sign the rate confirmation, they require carriers to put or trucking companies to put the driver's full name, their cell number, their truck and trailer number, so they can do what's called check calls. And they'll do check calls on the driver, like from the time that you call me when you when you get to the shipper, call me when you're loaded, call me when you get to the receiver, and call me when you're unloaded, stuff like that, right? They'll track the carriers, you know, in that manner, because they want to. The reason why they do that, one of the reasons I should say, is to update their customers, because this is their customers' freight that's on the trailers of these carriers, and to keep the customers happy, they want to make sure that the customer knows the movement of their freight and where everything is, the ETA and stuff like that. And in case there's emergencies, like the driver may get caught in traffic, may catch a flat tire, the truck may break down, things like that. So yeah, tracking software by brokers on carriers is a common theme. And again, one of the popular ones is MacroPoint. I'm not sure, Tina, if you had MacroPoint on your phone from a broker or not, but that's one of the popular ones.
Well, no, actually, I was driving for my company as a company driver, but they would reach out to other brokerage to get us loads when they were slow. And so they were like, okay, if that broker asks you to download their app for tracking purposes, you have to accept that app. And so I would do that on occasion. Actually, I found some drivers, you know, they don't want to give out their personal phone number. They don't want to be the old school drivers. They don't want to be, you know, micromanaged. But I actually, as a new coming driver, felt it was awesome to use. I didn't have to I didn't have to call in because they knew where I was. They knew what I was doing. And I didn't have to worry about, you know, oh, I got to reach out and tell them I'm 30 minutes behind. Well, they could see where I was. They knew, you know, as a driver, I enjoyed it, but I heard other drivers complaining, but you know, you got them drivers out there.
Well, for company drivers, there's no way around it. You work for a company, so you're pretty much doing what you're at the mercy of the company. They do force dispatch, they do tracking and things like that. For owner operators, if you don't comply with that requirement of putting that tracking software on your phone, turn your locator on, then you won't get that load. It's as simple as that. So that's how that works. But for company drivers, they have to do it because they work for a company. They're not owner operators. They don't control their own destiny. You know, owner operators, you have your own MC and DOT, your own truck and trailer, so you can take any load you want. You know, you can turn loads down and things like that. Company drivers, they force dispatch on you. But if you are a owner operator, in some cases, if you're an owner operator that's leased under a company, a trucking company, you know, it's a gray area there as opposed, you know, as it relates to whether or not it's a requirement or not to have the tracking software. But definitely company drivers, you are owner operators, you have the option. Owner operators who are not leased under a company and they have their own authority, DOT, MC, and truck and trailer, they can, if they want that load, they have to follow those requirements. Otherwise, they're not going to get the load. It's as simple as that.
Who fits that expense? Is that a broker expense or is that something you charge back to the shipper? I mean, is it like accessory pay?
It's not an accessorial policy. It is not an expense. Downloading an app on the phone, it's just, those apps are like, well, some of the apps, I guess, are free, but you just put them on your phone. I guess when it comes to using up your minutes on your phone, I guess I see where you're saying that, but that's such a small, minute. I mean, you don't want to nickel and dime them like that. You're downloading a MacroPoint app, tracking app to put on your phone as a carrier, Mr. Carrier, owner operator, on a $5,000 load. I'm not going to invoice the broker for $20. I'm taking a $5,000 load because I put an app on my phone for $20. I just got a $5,000 load. I'm not going to miss $20 to put an app on my phone to track me on a load that's paying me $5,000. So you just got to think about it like that, you know. And
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? So
Gotcha.
yeah, it's not even.
Yeah, I was just trying to work in the plan. I read some of the information you put out about the expenses that some of us have to incur when doing this process. I didn't know if that was considered. I didn't know it was a whole software package or if it's just a free app you can get, or wasn't real sure.
It's $2 to open it, Charles, and then 50 cents a day, at least on the one that I'm using.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Mr. Nelson is he has over 30 years experience driving. So $2 to open it and
50 cents a day, which is going to go back, you know, to the brokerage. But
right.
I mean, you know, it honestly it's for the driver's protection also.
Right. Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Nelson. Appreciate that.
So here is and tell me if you guys agree with this. So those who are curious about who are not brokers but are curious about opening a brokerage, those who are brokers who just opened up their brokerage. And before I ask this, but I saw some other people come in. Any other questions from guests? Got a few people coming in. Any questions? I see Jillian Brown.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Any questions? Got Rashawn Jones.
I'm just basically listening.
Okay.
I'm really a real beginner. I just completed a dispatching course because that's the field that I was planning on going into. But someone told me to learn the freight broker side as well.
You didn't go through my dispatching course? Oh my God.
No, and that's why I was getting kind of discouraged. I'm not saying the class that I went to wasn't that good, but I didn't grasp it as much as I am now with all the online training I have been doing on my own. So that's why I'm still taking trainings and still trying to learn.
Okay. So what do you know as a dispatcher? What is your what did you retain from your training? Give me a 1 minute synopsis of what you retained in your training for dispatching. Or 30 seconds.
Well, I'm gonna say being a dispatcher is important in the industry because we're the go-to between the broker and the carrier. And that our job is kind of important because what we do, a lot of the carriers don't like to do themselves.
Gotcha. Okay. And you're right. Okay. All right. So on the broker side, for beginner brokers, tell me if you agree with this statement or not. There's two of them I want to make. I'm going to read it because I was just in some training myself tonight. So as a broker, you never share with the carrier what the shipper pays you. True or false?
True.
Okay.
I would have to say true.
And true. And the second one is you never share with the shipper what you pay the carrier.
I think that's true too.
I think that's true too. So why?
True.
Why is that?
Because that's not their business.
Right. Because that's a very good answer. None of their business. So yeah, you don't. So you never share with the carrier what the shipper is paying you because as long as that carrier is getting the rate that they want on that load, it's irrelevant what the shipper paid you, right?
Right.
Okay. Tina, you got your hand raised?
No, sir, sorry. I was trying to get that.
Okay, no problem. So you never share with the carrier what the shipper pays you because as long as the carrier is getting their rate that they asked for or a competitive rate according to the market, what the market is yielding in that particular lane for that particular equipment type, then it's irrelevant what the shipper is paying you as the broker. And then on the never share with the shipper what you're paying the carrier because it's irrelevant to the ship. As long as that load is getting tendered and moved at the target rate that the shipper agreed to give you, should it matter how much you gave to the carrier to the shipper? It should not. As long as you, as the broker, you got a target rate tender from a shipper, you agreed, the shipper said, I'm going to give you $5,000 to move this load, right? And whatever that rate paid to the carrier in that lane for that equipment type, and you took your margins off of that, your percentage as a broker, whether it's 15, 20%, it doesn't matter when you invoice that shipper, you're going to invoice them for the target rate that you guys agreed upon. And then you're going to take your percentage out and then you're going to pay the carrier, whatever that number. It's irrelevant that the shipper should know what you paid the carrier and vice versa, right?
Right.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Can I have one more question?
Who was that?
Tashina, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so I saw an instance where a carrier tried to, well, not tried, they actually bargained.
One second.
Oh.
I hear some background noise. Let me go ahead and mute everybody. Unmute yourself, Tashina.
Okay. I saw an instance where a carrier bargained with the agent on how much he would take that load for. So she offered him, I believe it was 1,900 to take the load. And he came back with, oh, I can't do that. I can do it for 2,100. And she agreed to it, which it still made sense because she still made, they still made a profit off of the load. But at what point should you accept? And at what point should you, I guess, deny the carrier?
So you said a freight agent. So
yes.
So a freight agent. So under that brokerage, that broker must have had a conversation with that agent and say, okay, here's what your limit is and how much wiggle room you got to negotiate on this load and get a carrier to move it. Let's say the load paid let's say the shipper paid $2,500. They wasn't budging. The shipper paid $2,500. So the broker says, okay, Mr. Agent, how much you want to book this load for? Let's say $2,200. Let's make $300 off this load. So $2,200. So anything below that, you're winning. You're doing some extra winning. So now you posted on the load board for a lesser number. Let's say $1,850. Your cap is $2,200, right? The shipper paid you guys $25 on the load. You marked off $300 initially, but you posted it for even less. You posted it for $1,850. So the carrier comes in and say, I'm not going to do it for $1,850. You got a smart carrier. They say, I want to do it for $2,100 because I know the market dictates about $2,000, $2,100. So they went up a little bit. They still haven't reached that threshold of $2,200. They're at $2,100. So the freight agent like, okay, I posted it for $1,850. You want an extra $150 or extra $250 on it? You want it for $2,100? Let me put you on hold real quick and let me check with my let's see what we can work out. That's how they talk to you. Let's see what we'll work out. They're not going to say, well, I'm going to go talk to my broker and see what we think. Let's say, let me put you on hold. Let me see if we can work it out. Okay. $2,100 is not more than that $2,200. So they're close to that threshold by $100. So they probably come back and say, okay, yeah, we could do it for $2,100 because they still made that $300 because they're going to invoice the customer, the shipper, for $25. Take off their $300, now an extra $100. So they're going to take off $400 and give $2,100 to the carrier. So they're still winning, you see?
Yes.
But it depends. So it depends on how much they had in on that load with the customer, with the shipper.
Right. Okay. Got it.
To give you, so they mark it down a certain amount, not too far because they won't even get a call on it. No carrier won't move it, but they'll mark it down enough just to get a carrier to call and see if they'll bite that $1,850. And then they just so happen to get a carrier saying, no, that's not, no, I know the lane, I know the equipment type, I know the commodity, I know the rate. It's not $1,850, it's much more than that. I want 21. I'll move it for 21. And then the agent like, okay, let me put you on hold. And then come back about 5 minutes later or a minute later. We can do it for 2,100. What's your MC? And then start that process, of onboarding that carrier if they were not already onboarded with them already, So you guys know what that means, right? When you onboard a carrier to your brokerage, right? You just basically get them set up with your brokerage. You send them out a broker carrier agreement. They send that back to you. They also send you copies of their MC authority. The carrier does. They'll send you copies of their MC authority letter, a copy of their certificate of insurance, a copy of their W-9. And if they have a factoring company, they'll send you a form for the factoring company. It's called an NOA, a notice of assignment. You as the broker, you take all that information in, you process it into your system, run it through your compliance, your TMS system to either approve or disapprove that carrier, and then call them back if they're approved and say, yeah, you've been approved. Let me now send you our rate confirmation. So the broker carrier agreement and all those other documents, that just gets the carrier onboarded to your brokerage. It does not book the load. What books the load is the signature being returned to you by the carrier or the dispatcher of that carrier of the rate confirmation, okay? Which means that now that carrier agrees to the numbers on the rate confirmation. Ms. Brown, you got your hand up. You got to unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you repeat those documents again one more time?
The onboarding documents.
Yes.
Okay, so if you're a broker and I'm a carrier calling you about that load, let's use that example, that 1850 load, but we negotiated it up to 2100, and we agreed to it. We agreed to it over the phone, and you, the broker, say, okay, let me send you my broker carrier agreement, right? So you send, you know what that is, right? The broker carrier agreement.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, it's the contract between you, the brokerage, and the carrier to get onboarded, to get set up, right? You know, there's the standard verbiage. So you, the broker, you're going to email me that or send it to my dispatcher. I'm the carrier, ABC Trucking, what have you. And my dispatcher or myself, we get that, we fill that broker carrier agreement out, and then we send that back to you along with copies of because every broker always asks for these other documents when they onboard carriers. They ask for a copy of their MC authority letter. Okay, I'm gonna go over this slow. I'm gonna define why. So the MC authority letter, the purpose of getting the MC authority letter returned from a carrier to a broker is to make sure that the carrier is authorized by FMCSA and DOT to move freight. They have an active authority, right? So that's number one, MC authority letter. Number two, certificate of insurance. Right? So the certificate of insurance needs to verify that the carrier has enough insurance coverage to cover the cost, of damages and things like that, to insure the freight that's going to be on their trailer. The two common categories on most policies generally is cargo and liability, right? Cargo, the minimum requirement is 100,000. General liability, the minimum requirement that brokers require because their shippers require is 1 million. Now, some trucking companies and carriers, they have to get the minimum requirements for the insured is 750,000, but they just need to bump it up to 1 million, right? And that covers what's called BI and PD, bodily injury and property damage. Okay, so that's the second document, MC authority letter, certificate of insurance. The third one is the W-9, which shows they have an EIN number and they are a business for tax purposes, right? W-9. And then the fourth document, I'm the trucking company and Ms. Brown, you're the broker. If I have a factoring company, I'm going to send you my factoring company's form. It's called a notice of assignment, NOA. And what that does is I'm running a credit check on you through my factoring company to make sure you, the broker, is what's called factorable, quote unquote. Because most brokerages, or most factoring companies, they do credit checks on brokers too. Just like you, the broker, is going to do a credit check on the shipper. When you bring the shipper and give them a line of credit or whatever, the carrier's factoring company is going to run a credit check on you to make sure that you are factorable, that there are no red flags against you, no claims and all that other stuff. You're not a bad broker. Your DTP or your days to pay is too long, things like that. So all those forms are sent in along with the broker carrier agreement to get onboarded. Now, most brokers nowadays, they've kind of caught up with the 21st century, and they don't send the broker carrier agreement in a email PDF attached to an email. They do what's called an onboarding process through their web portal or a link to like RMIS, like Registry Monitoring Insurance Service. They do like a link. So it's a quicker process. You click the link, you enter the carrier's DOT and MC number, and then most of the data is automatically populated into that software because most of that data is a matter of public record anyway, right?
Okay.
CSA and DOT data. So, okay. So the broker carrier agreement and all those other documents being returned to you, the brokerage, you're going to process that information in, run it through your compliance team, and approve or not approve, usually approve that carrier. That's all that process does. It doesn't book the load. It approves the carrier to be an approved carrier under your brokerage. You just onboarded a carrier. What books that load, that specific load I may have called you about on the load board or however I got it, is now you got to generate what's called a rate confirmation. with, after you get all that information, you got to generate what's called a rate confirmation or a load confirmation. Sometimes you'll see load confirmation. You send that to the carrier, and then the carrier signs that. If they agree with the numbers and everything that we discussed verbally, they sign it, 2,100 in our example, they sign it and then return that back to you, the broker. Now you have that load is officially booked. So now you're going to let your shipper know, hey, I got a rate confirmation. We can go ahead and produce what's called a bill of lading at that shipper location. We can produce a bill of lading. So when the carrier goes to pick up the load at the shipper, they have a BOL waiting on them. They get there, they get their BOL, and then the shipper loads that carrier. The shipping manager there or whoever loaded them, they sign on that BOL saying that everything, the pallet count was good, nothing was damaged, everything was there, and this carrier either signs or initials next to that. They keep their copy at the shipping location. Then the carrier drives to, or they transport that freight to the receiver. They get to the receiver to get unloaded. They get unloaded, everything's accounted for, nothing's damaged, everything's in place. The receiver signs their area. The carrier either initials or signs next to the receiver location. The receiver keeps their copy. The final copy of the BOL, the signed BOL, is now called a POD. So another name for a signed BOL, bill of lading, signed by all parties, shipper, receiver, is now called a POD, proof of delivery, because your carrier's truck is empty, and this is the invoice now that the carrier is going to use to send to either their factory company or back to you, the broker. Because most brokers, they have a payment options. They have three payment options, right? Or three types of payment options. Could be more, but three common ones. You offer quick pay. So if you as a broker have a factory company, you can offer a quick pay service, 24 to 48 hours. You may charge up to 5%. They may also offer a second a second type of payment option. It's called a wire transfer, ACH. ACH, A as in Apple, C as in Charlie, H as in Harry. ACH stands for Automated Clearinghouse. What it is you either ask the carrier in the carrier packet when they were filling out to send you a voided check, or you tell them to give you the routing number and the account number where you want to wire that money to their account, right? And that's about 5 to 7 day process. You charge about maybe 3% for that service. And then the third payment option by you, the broker, that you pass on to the carrier is a paper check that you mail to their domicile residence, right? Their city and state where they live. And that's about 7 to 15 days out, okay? So those are the three payment options you as a broker can offer to a carrier, especially if the carrier does not have a factoring company to help them with their finances, all right? Mm-hmm. Hopefully I didn't go too fast on that. Okay, any questions? No questions?
Yes, one more, please.
Okay.
So what I've seen so far is that if you're starting out, you really should start out as a freight agent, but how doable is it to just start as a broker? If you get the proper training, you gain as much knowledge as you can, is it really doable to just start as a broker and not go the freight agent way, or become a dispatcher?
Yeah, it's doable. I got about 3 or 4 people in here tonight who are freight brokers in the training that didn't start as agents.
Okay.
NT, Amy, Mr. Nelson, and then I got other students in the training. So I just personally, if you have like zero experience whatsoever, right? If you know something and you can start off as a broker and you have access to, you may know somebody who may know someone who's in logistics and in transportation, you can get to that person and potentially get loads from them. Mm-hmm. You have a greater chance of starting off as a broker and getting those accounts. Mm-hmm. it doesn't hurt to start off as an agent, especially if you know very little, if anything, to get that experience and to work under a brokerage and to learn the process of how it's done all the time, right? As a broker, get that experience. And I've partnered with a few brokerages who are willing to hire people as agents. If you come through this course, you'll be, and you stay in here long enough, maybe, I guess, I don't know, 90 days, maybe, I don't know. It shouldn't take 90 days to learn the whole, because I beat this in the ground a lot, the basics. So if you come in as an agent after coming through here, you should be fine, because you'll know the process of how to move a load. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So when do you offer dispatching training?
Dispatch trainings are offered now, but as far as the live trainings you're saying?
Yes.
My live trainings are Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're on the website, I'm sharing my screen. Am I sharing my screen?
Yeah.
So under Dispatcher 101, this is all the content under Dispatcher 101. Okay. And this is all the content under Freight Broker 101. So
how is that training? Okay. So okay. Sorry, I'm still looking at it.
Okay. So you guys are in the Freight Broker 101 training for beginners, basic and entry level training tonight. And then Friday, we have more of an intermediate Freight Broker 101 training. The Dispatcher 101 basic trainings and entry level is on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern. And the intermediate is Sunday at 11 a.m. And I may add another day for the basic, which is Saturday, because I have Freight Broker seminars on Saturdays. I have Dispatcher seminars on Saturdays and Freight Broker seminars on Sundays. So, but you were asking a question, Tashina?
So I'm not sure. Okay, so if you said you have training on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. and then Sunday morning at 11 a.m. So
Eastern.
That's every week for 90 days. Is that what you're saying?
No. On the Dispatcher side, that's every week for up to 1 year.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying on the Freight Broker side, the trainings are Tuesdays and Fridays. And after about 90 days, you should be versed enough if you decide to want to work for a brokerage as an agent. It should take about that period of time, to pick up on everything. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Right. Anything else? Any questions? This is Q&A. I was doing some Q&A tonight. I had came a little late because I was stuck in traffic on the interstate. People didn't know how to drive, apparently, I guess. I don't know. But so there's a lot of guests in here. So I'm assuming that you guys are curious about the concept of being a freight broker. That's why you're here, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
So what kind of curious questions do you have? Like, I see people that are in here that are like Mr. Jones, Rashawn Jones, or I don't know how to pronounce the first name.
Yeah, I'm actually Monica. I'm on my baby tablet. Sorry.
Okay, Monica. And then Gianni and Taiwan. So I'm just trying to make sure. I just want to make sure I'm covering all bases before I get off the training tonight, and make sure that all the curious, because you came in here for a reason, so I want to make sure your questions are answered before we leave. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to put you on the spot. Just want to make sure your questions are answered. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Taiwan.
Okay. So yes, sir.
I kind of joined a little late. Is it possible for you to go over the first 5 minutes of the training? I think I missed that portion of it.
Okay. I have selective amnesia, so I probably don't remember. What did we talk about the first 5 minutes? Somebody refresh my memory, then I can go ahead and break it down.
We talked about the onboarding documents. We talked about
Oh no, even before that. So what is a freight broker? So if you guys come on, you guys are guests, right? You're guests, so you're on the Freight Broker 101 training. So the first question I asked you, give me a definition of what, in your opinion, what do you think a freight broker is? What is a freight broker?
Freight broker, I guess, is just the middleman between the shipper and the carrier.
Okay, yep, that's a good one.
The shipper and the agent, yeah.
No, the shipper,
Yeah.
he's right, the shipper and the carrier, because the agent is under the brokerage. So the middleman, because you got two customers. You got the shipper, who's your customer, and you got the carrier, who's also your customer, if you think about it, because you got to pay
Right.
them. But, and the generic definition is a freight broker is someone who arranges the transportation of freight, right?
All right.
Or cargo, or loads, right?
Arrange
That's all you-
that again.
That's all you do. You arrange the movement, or you arrange the transportation of freight. That's it.
Mhm.
That's all a freight broker is. You arrange the transportation of freight. Now, what you do in that process defines your brokerage, okay?
Right.
So how you talk to the shippers, how you get the shippers, what type of accounts you get, how you talk to the carriers, what prices are you offering to the carriers, you know, what are your rates, are they fair rates, and whether a carrier is going to on board with you and sign up with you. So now you're defining your brokerage based off of that definition, that generic definition. Now you're getting more granular and specific in that by all the parties that you deal with in your arrangement of transportation of freight. How do you deal with the customers? How do you deal with the carriers, you know? But if you think about it on a high level, as long as you remember that you only arrange for the movement of the freight. How do you do that, right? You go get the freight, and then you arrange for the movement of it by going to the carrier, because the carrier is going to move the freight. You get the freight from your customer, you arrange for the movement of it with your carrier, right? But you got to have contracts between both of them. You got to have a broker shipper contract or agreement to get the freight. And then you have to have a broker carrier agreement with the carriers in order for them to move the freight, right?
Right.
So if you think about that, that's layman's terms, right? But it gets more detailed in the processes, right? But that's layman's terms, okay? Did that help you, Taiwan?
Yeah, it helped. It also brought up another question. So you say the detail of things are, well, when you get to the details of it, is that based off of competitors? Is that based off of what you see in the market as far as
Very good question. Very good question. And there are a number of underlying variables, if you will, in that question. So yes, let's go to the customer side. In those variables, right? Those underlying variables as a broker, when you're dealing with customers, what are the methods that you use to approach the customers? If you got customers that you research the customer, what is your niche as a broker? Or you may not have a niche, you just want to get freight. There's a lot of freight out there. You may not decide to go with a niche. Or if you do go with a niche, what equipment types does the commodity of that niche fall under? You know, things like that. And then when you go after the customers, you research the customer. Do they live locally close to you where you can visit them, set up an appointment to talk to the logistics people in person? Or do you cold call? If you cold call, what do you say? You got 30 seconds. How can you convince that shipper to give you loads, right? So that's a process. What if you say something that convinces them to give you a load, right? If you were a broker and you call me, you say, hey, I'm with ABC Brokerage. I just try to see if we can move some freight, or whatever you said to convince me, right? You got past the gatekeeper, you got past all the requirements, and you finally got to me on my phone. I picked the phone up. You called me at the right time. And I said, okay, I'm gonna give you a shot. I need you to quote a lane for me. And then what do you do next? You get stuck. Well, what the heck did he say? I don't know. What does that mean? I need you to quote a lane for me. So when the shipper tells you that, what do you do, right? This is a real life perspective, right? If a shipper tells you after you spoke to them on cold call and you convince them that you're their logistics provider, you can solve a problem for them, you can meet their capacity, you can get all their loads moved, or you can improve their production by 20% by moving freight to their customers and without any accidents and claims. You said, okay, I like how that sounds. I like how you talking to me. I need you to, I got a problem lane that we've been having trouble with. We had to get rid of this one broker. Can you quote this lane? What do you say? Right? What do you say? Well, here's some, go ahead.
No, yeah, that was my next question. Like, what do you say to that?
Right. What do you say? Well, the first thing you say, okay, where's it picking up from? How many stops is it? Where's it delivering to? What's the commodity? What are your accessories? What are your accessorial policy? You got to ask certain questions to fill in those blanks, because you got to get as much information from that shipper in order to go do your research and do competitive rates on that lane in order to come up with a quote. And you have to add your margins in to make sure that you make your money too. So as a broker, what are you charging? What are your margins? What are you charging? 12%, 15%, 20% on that. So if a shipper gives you a $5,000 load tender, or he gives you a lane quote, he didn't give you a number as a tender. He said, quote me a lane. So he's giving you an opportunity to give him numbers. He didn't give you a number. If he gives you a target rate, that means he's not budging. He or she's not budging. But if he tells you to quote a lane, you have an opportunity to give him some numbers based off of competitive rates on the lane, plus your margins on top of that, and you come back to them with a number. And then whether or not they approve it or not, that's up to them. So, and that's how that works, right? They'll say, quote me a lane. Okay, I'll quote you a lane. Before I do that, I need some information so I can give you a competitive rate. And they'll say, well, what do you need? Well, I need your phone number and email first, your full name, because I want to send it to you professionally in an email, because you can't do that over the phone right now. Plus they're busy, you're busy. You want to give some time for yourself and then go back and do your research and then send them an email. Right? Now, once you become more versed at it over time, then if a shipper asks me to quote a lane, I'm like, okay, I know what to say to him. I can just spit it out. Okay, where's it picking up? Where's it delivering to? How many stops is it? What's the commodity? Equipment type, things like that. What's your accessories when it comes to this, and this? Things like that, because there's some common things you ask, right? Some of the common basics. If the shippers ask you to quote a lane, obviously you need to know where it's picking up from. Obviously you need to know where it's delivering to, because if you get a carrier needs to know this, where's it picking up? If I'm gonna take this load and you're paying me for it, I need to know where I'm picking it up from, and I need to know where it's delivering to. That's basic stuff right there, right? How many stops is it? The more stops, the more you can charge. You got stop charges, those are called accessorials. Do you have lumper? Do you have layover? Do you have detention? Things like that. So these are things that will come later as beginner freight brokers. You may not be aware of this now, but over time you'll start to pick up on some of these things. But if a shipper asks you to quote a lane, you get some information. Or if a shipper say, I got a lane, he may say, I got a lane, it's going from here to here, and this is the rate, we're not budging on it. This is our target rate. You can either make it work or you don't have to. And you say, okay, yeah, go ahead, email me that. Send me that email. They'll send you that $5,000 tender, and then you'll see where it's picking up to. You'll compare the lane on the load board, see what the spot market quotes for it, and you'll say, I think I got enough wiggle room to charge or mark off about 15%, 20%. So, yeah. Okay. And that's just on the shipper side, right? Now you got to go to the carrier side. So now you got to have negotiate, because carriers are going to try to negotiate higher rates with you. You have a target rate with your shipper. Let's say a $5,000 load tender, and you marked off 20%. 20% of 5,000 is $1,000, right? So you took off 20%. You took off $1,000 off this $5,000 load tender, and you're trying to sell it to the carrier for $4,000. Well, a good carrier, they know their lanes. They're gonna say, I'm not moving this for $4,000. I'm moving for $4,700. You see? So now he's eating into your $1,000 margin, because remember, $5,000 from the shipper, you marked off 20%. So you try to sell it to the carrier for $4,000. He wants $4,700, so he's trying to eat $700. So out of your $1,000, now you only got $300 left, if you want that load to move. Now let's think about it like this. Let's think about volume. Let's say the shipper has 40 loads a week. I would be willing to eat 700 off of that to give it to the carrier for 47 and make 300 off of it, to not move it at all and lose out on the opportunity to make more money off those other 40 loads a week, right? I won't be that greedy because I'm thinking volume now. I'll take a $300 profit over 40 loads a week as opposed to $1,000 profit only on one load. So as a broker, you have to think about that mindset. Your volume, how many loads a week you're getting from that shipper, or loads a month, or however much volume they're giving you, you know, and think of it like that. But you want to keep the shipper happy by satisfying their tender rate, and you want to keep the carrier happy by paying them what they need to move that load. So you are the true middleman in that process. Okay? I hope that helped, Taiwan.
Yeah, it did. It did. It was a lot of moving parts, but it all made sense. It all makes sense.
And as you progress in your brokerage, if you decide to open up a brokerage, you are going to discover very quickly that there are a lot of moving parts as a broker.
Yeah.
Whether you want to discover that or not, you are going to discover it. And it's good to get with people who have or are currently involved in brokering that can kind of put you onto the learning curve of what to expect. So when it comes your way, you'll have a little inclination of how to handle it, you know? Anyone else? Tina, you clapping your hands? I see a hand clap.
No, I got my hand up. I'm sorry. In regard to what you just said, I understand, like, just to get the concept down, I'm looking at, okay, I've got to negotiate a price with the carrier, or not with the carrier, I'm sorry, with the shipper on moving their load. And then I have to go out and I have to negotiate with the carrier to move that load. So I'm looking at, okay, I got to look at your I can never say that word, accessorial pay,
Right.
and all the things involved in that.
Right.
Right.
So sometimes you may not be able to negotiate with the shipper. The shipper may have a target rate that they're paying you, and they're not budging on that. And if you want that rate and those loads, you would just agree to that, like $5,000 target rate, no more, no less.
Right. That's what I was getting at.
Right.
That part also, you know, if they tell you, well, I just gave up a brokerage because they were charging me set amount, and they give you their set amount of what they were paying that last brokerage. Can you use that amount at any concept when you're trying to renegotiate with these people? Can you say, oh, well, they were paying them such and such, maybe I should pay them this, they should pay me this? Or does that affect it in any way?
You can leverage that you can leverage it, but if it had an adverse or negative effect on the previous broker or the brokerage, then of course I'm not going to use those numbers for me, because if it had that effect on that brokerage, why would I?
Right, but say they just canceled them because they weren't able to maintain their loads on time. You know,
Right.
They were paying them set amount, but the drivers were always late.
Right.
You know. So you're sitting there going, well, it may not have been a rate problem. It was just their system, you know.
It was a driver being late. It was a carrier problem. So now you got to deal with,
Right.
And that's another thing as a broker too. You got two sides again, the shipper and the carrier side. So you got to deal with, you know, vetting, getting good carriers. The way you get good carriers,
Right.
of course, if you start paying your carriers good rates, then they're going to want to stay with you and not be late, always be on time. And if you get to a point where you're generating, like, you're grossing like, you know, millions of dollars a year for your brokerage, you could provide some type of incentives to your carriers, you know, offer them quick pay, fuel advances, things like that. If you're on time, we offer this, or we'll give an extra $50 every time you're on time or something like that, you know, for the first 90 days, right? Just to see how on time those carriers will be. And you'll be able to weed out, you know, certain carriers from others, you know. And that's just a suggestion.
Now,
You
also,
don't have to do it.
right. in regard to the negotiations, like we were discussing this, it could be, all right, you're discussing the prices of one load, but like you said, what if they've got 40 to 50 loads that they're talking multiple loads now?
Right.
How
So
does,
now
how
you're,
much does that really
well, now
play
you're
into
thinking, now you're thinking,
negotiation at
now
that
you're thinking,
point?
now you're thinking volume. Because if you land a shipper that's offering you 40 loads a week as opposed to 10 loads a week, and you're trying to nickel and dime a carrier on the other side to make money off one load from that 40 loads a week volume, you're going to potentially lose that shipper in those 40 loads. So I would eat the cost of paying that carrier more so than trying to make money off of the shipper side on that carrier in order to keep that customer happy and keep those high volumes. So I would take a lower margin on a high volume shipper, you know, to keep that high volume shipper. So 40 loads at $300 a load as opposed to 10 loads at $1,000 a load, right? It's
Right.
volumes. It's a numbers game now. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, can you offer like a said, or would you offer a said discount to a shipper if he's going to give you multiple loads versus a few loads? Would that be an avenue to promote your brokerage?
That's something to think about. That's something you should think about for your brokerage. But negotiating with the shipper controls the game. So if they either negotiate, they give you an opportunity to negotiate by telling you the quota lane. That's where your negotiation part comes in at. But if they have target rates that they're not budging on, then you just have to decide whether or not you want to take that load or not as a brokerage.
Okay.
But the negotiating side comes more on the carrier side than it would the shipper side, because now you gotta convince the carrier, well, not convince them, but motivate them, I guess you would, if you will, to take a load at a competitive rate and maybe a little bit more, a few $100s more. You know, as long as you make that carrier happy and they're moving those loads, then your shipper's going to be happy because your shipper's customers are happy because the freight is getting to their customer. Shippers have customers. So if you're at a distribution center and you're moving loads from a shipper at a distribution center, moving them to their customers at another distribution center or grocery stores or whatever, then their customer is happy. So it rolls uphill as well as downhill. It rolls uphill when it's good and downhill when it's bad, right?
Right.
So,
Charles, can I iterate on that?
yes, sir.
Can I speak on? Also, if you got a shipper that's a volume shipper, he's giving you 30, 40 loads a week, and he's decided to use you, then I suggest that you go out and you find you a carrier that has multiple trucks. Because what's going to end up happening, he's giving you 30, 40 loads a week. He's going to want somebody that's going to be on it consistently. So if you got a carrier that's got more than 20, 25 trucks, you try and do a contract with that carrier to move that volume freight. Therefore, he does not have to go to different carriers every week when he puts those 40 loads out to you.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because if you so as a broker, you know, get approved carriers that have multiple trucks, like trucking companies like 10 or more, stuff like that, under your brokerage, because now you increase the likelihood of you moving your loads with trucking companies as opposed to just one, you know, an owner op with just one truck and trailer, you know. All right. Any other questions? This is good. We got
So
some.
then the goal, I'm sorry. So then adding to what he said, so then the ultimate goal would be to get your own trucks then, right? I mean, eventually.
Hold them to go in the bed.
Yeah. So if you could be an asset-based brokerage, then it looks good in the eyes of a shipper because they're more willing to give you loads anyway because you have your own capacity. You have your own asset to cover their capacity and move loads for them.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an asset-based brokerage with 20 trucks on your trucking side and you have a broker side and you go after shippers whose commodities or freight or cargo loads on the type of equipment that's on your trucking side, then you're winning, right? You can just say, okay, we're asset-based. We have 20 trucks right now. We can meet your capacity, Mr. Shipper. We don't have to rely on the load boards and approved carriers and get them set up. We already got our own, we have our assets.
Right.
We're good. Right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
All right. Yep.
All right, we're good.
Yes, thank you. This was so helpful. I really appreciate it.
Who was that?
Tashina. Yes.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, this I usually don't get this many guests, but this is good. Going over some basics, especially those who are I don't know how you guys got a hold of me. It's probably either on Instagram or Facebook.
Facebook. Through the
Okay,
group.
Oh, my the
YouTube.
Facebook 101 group.
Yes.
The Freight Broker, yeah, that's my Freight Broker 101 group. Okay, yeah, I must have announced that I'm having training and people can come in as guests. So yeah, okay, yeah.
So on Friday, it would be like a legit training that you have to pay for, right? Can you put the prices and stuff back up? I think you had that up earlier.
Yeah, today is a legit training that you had to pay for too, but I just invited guests. I just invited guests. Yeah, I just invited you guests on. But if you were interested in enrolling in the Freight Broker 101 training for beginners, these are the price points on the website here.
Okay, can you leave that up so I can write it down?
I can also put the link in the chat so you can copy that as well.
Okay, that would be great.
During the training, if you accidentally have to miss one of the meetings or one of the Zooms, is it recorded and saved for us to go back the next day and rewatch it or catch up what we lost?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
So right here in our back office, let me minimize my screen because it's big. Training videos library. See that? Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so from Freight Broker or FB 101 orientation down, you need a guest password to get in everything. Once you enroll, you will get guest passwords for each. So we got prerequisites to freight brokering, what all you need, your business plan, LLC, stuff like that. Freight broker requirements, we went over that earlier today. Authority, bond, UCR, insurance, BOC3, stuff like that. The difference between a freight broker and freight broker agent, workflow of freight brokering, the 4 R's, working capital, whether you get a line of credit, whether you have factoring company, things like that. The 4 R's, research, reach out, what is the third one? What is the, I don't need them all on R's. Return, I can't even remember. Let me go into it and show it. Relationship, yeah. So at the 4 R's of freight brokering, reaching out to the shipper, whether you do your research, do your due diligence, learn about them, go on their website, because you don't want to call a shipper and not know anything about that company, right? You don't want to make yourself look like you don't know anything. So you would, by the time you've called and got that person pick up their phone, you can tell them about their company that would impress them so much that they'll be more than willing to listen to you a little bit further. And that goes a long way because now you increase the likelihood of them potentially giving you a load. If you can pretty much tell them, because if you call the shipper and say, hey, can I move, I'm such and such with ABC Freight Brokerage, I want to move some freight. If I'm a shipper, I'm like, what do we haul? What's our commodity? What's our lanes? And you can't tell me none of that. I'm gonna hang up on you, right? You call me wanting to move my freight, but you don't know nothing about my company, right? So what's the point? So research, reach out. That's cold calling, reaching out to them or visiting them locally, you know, or sending emails. Relationship, you build a relationship by moving their loads, right? You get past the gatekeeper, talk to the person in charge, logistics or shipping manager, and then you have return. You get return business by satisfying your customer, the shipper. They'll give you more loads. If you can prove to them that you can move their capacity with what they gave you, sometimes shippers will give you a test. Like I had a shipper that did lumber, would get 4 loads a week. And then if you move those 4 loads, it'll go to 8, and then it'll go to 16, and it'll go to like 32, right? So there's a limit though. You can only move so much per week if you only got so many trucks, so much capacity, right? But it's stuff like that, right? So that's under there. And then we get in module 1, which goes into customers/shippers, dealing with customers/shippers. What do you say to them? Things like that, the different scripts and things like that. How do you talk to the shipper? When you call them on the phone, you know, some of the things you may say. Like, for example, Mr. Nelson said this the other day. Call us, ring, ring, ring. You know, hello, this is logistics man. I was wondering whether or not you were working on a situation where you had some lanes available that you didn't have been able to cover, or whether or not you had some freight that you had some brokers fall off on. That's an honest question. You either need lanes covered or you need the lanes that that brokers fell off on, that they weren't able to handle. And so now you present yourself as a problem solver. Perhaps I might be able to help you with that problem, lend some solutions to that problem. You remember this, Mr. Nelson, from a couple of days ago? Oh, he's still with me. Okay. And then
Yeah, I remember, Charles.
Yep, and then there's some other things. Also, too, are you having any other problems with getting your partials or LTL freight moved? So that's another problem. And then also, too, with shippers, don't limit yourself with just the outbound freight. You have 2 sides to the coin. Shipping is like coins. There's 2 sides to it. You have outbound freight, which you cold call and email and stuff like that. And then you have inbound freight, because shippers, they get their stuff they get inbound freight too. So that could be like referrals, right? So you may be at a distributor that distributes products to their wholesalers, but they get inbound freight from manufacturers. So you can talk to them while you're there. You know, I want to handle some outbound freight, but I want to handle some inbound freight too. Who are you getting your supplies from? Who makes your stuff? Right? Who are you getting your inbound freight from? Can I get a referral for them so I can call them and try to get their business? So don't just limit yourself to outbound freight, but ask about inbound freight as well. Right? Tina, you got your hands up.
Yeah, is usually at the shippers the point of contact handle both of those, receiving and shipping, or are you actually going to have to get a hold of 2 different people at these companies?
Very good question. And yes, and yes. Sometimes you have a whole department that handles shipping and receiving. Sometimes you have a shipping building and you have a receiving building, because the companies are so large and they have so many bay doors, dock doors in their shipping side and in their receiving side. So they can be 2 separate buildings on the same campus, right? Large companies. So yes and yes. Okay. So are you having any other problems with getting your partials or LTL freight moved? This is just a script, right? Let me take a look and see what the market is yielding on those lanes. Send my email address and contact information, take a look at those items, and to get to work on them as soon as I can. So that's a script. I'm gonna put that together. This Mr. Nelson's, I'm sure he don't mind me borrowing it to share with you guys.
Nah.
But it's short and effective, and it gets to the point. Remember, you got about 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds tops to get their attention, right? So.
And also, when you're vetting carriers, don't be afraid to add a couple of LTL carriers to your carrier portal, for the simple reason the LTL carrier can come in the door, and not only can he handle partial shipments and or LTL freight, but he can also handle full truckload shipments. So that could be a selling point too, as far as getting a shipper to give you some freight, because it may be a situation where he may have a lane to cover with full truckloads, but you tell him, hey, you know, I see you got LTL freight there too. Is there any way that I can get that moved for you, since I've got an LTL carrier that's coming in here that can possibly handle your full truckloads also?
Exactly. So that's under the workflow for ours. And then we got module 1, the shippers, dealing with shippers. We got packet types. So as a broker, you deal with, and we covered this earlier, as a broker, you have 2 types of packets, right? Or agreements. You have the broker shipper agreement or broker shipper packet, and you have the broker carrier packet, right? And so what are the contents of those? Let me open that up. So what's in the broker shipper packet? It's usually the broker shipper agreement. Then it's a copy of, so this is what you're sending back to the shipper, or not back, but sending to the shipper initially. Your broker shipper agreement, which you produced for your brokerage. You have to formulate your own broker shipper agreement. You can, look up, I have a template here you can follow. And then you send that broker shipper agreement with your terms to that shipper, along with copies of your broker authority, your active broker authority, a copy of either your bond, which is either the surety bond or the trust fund, which is the BMC 84 or the BMC 85. These are what they look like, okay? Copy of your W-9, your brokerage. This is your stuff you're sending to your customer, shipper, and any insurance you may have. This is just a sample contingent cargo. And a credit application. I need to shift this up a little bit. Credit application. And that can be from your factoring company. And then this is offline a little bit, or slightly. Your carrier packet, which is what you're going to send your carrier, your broker carrier agreement, right? And this is just a sample of what one looks like. It's a screenshot. Your carrier profile. Why is this offline? What? Carrier profile, which is this image here. Your carrier's authority. Your carrier's certificate of insurance, and your carrier's W-9 and their notice of assignment. Okay? So as a broker, you got 2 packet types. The broker shipper packet and the broker carrier packet, right? Because remember, you're the middle person. And then module 2, we get into the discussion of the difference between an approved carrier and an asset-based carrier. It's kind of a no-brainer though, right? Approved carriers are the ones, they're part of your network. They're the ones that you onboard. The asset-based carriers are already, on the trucking side of your brokerage. Of course, you got 2 separate MCs for that, And then module 3, we get into the booking of loads, right? The process of booking of loads, the workflow of booking of loads, right? We talk about TMS systems. TMS stands for Transportation Management Software. This is software that you use to kind of manage your the workflow of the movement of that freight. As you get the load tender into your TMS system, you process that information in. You create the rate confirmation. It does bookkeeping. It keeps track of your assets, your carriers, your customers. It does accounting for you in these TMS systems. So, and then we have various tools, resources, and documents in our back office. And then of course, our training videos. So let me go to tools, some of the tools you may see in our back office, okay? Some of our tools. Broker tools here, all these different tools you can utilize, of course. Different sites you can go to. Webster's Online. These are sites that you can go to. You can literally click the image. It takes you to the site. Webster's Online is a shipper search engine, if you will. You can look up shippers based off of the commodity or the area that you're in, the company name, the SIC code, and the NAICS codes. Okay. You can look up fuel prices, Safer, DAT trend lines, McRae's Blue Book, Carriers and Food, Thomasnet, Hunter IO, Leonard's. These are different resources that you can use in the back office as a broker when you're looking up shippers to call. Okay, readily available. If you click each image or any of the image, it takes you to another tab in your browser to that website. For example, if I click Leonard's, hopefully, if it works, or Hunter IO, there we go. It goes to that site. Okay. Thomasnet goes to that site. Hunter IO, it goes to that site. You get the point, right? Careers in Food, you click the image, it goes to Careers in Food. So on and so forth. These are all resources. McRae's Blue Book. You can look up companies, shippers, steel manufacturers, you do a search for them. So all these resources and tools in your back office area here on this training. How do I get shippers? PDF. How to do your cold calls tenfold, your 10x cold calls. Top 500 manufacturing companies, is PDF. How to find freight like the pros. I mean, there's just so much information, right? So trade associations, factoring and bonds. I mean, I got last year's shippers list, 2020 shippers list. It's a spreadsheet. You can download that to your local computer. So it's a plethora, if that's still a word, of information. So for you guys to utilize for your brokerage. And it's all back here for you if you decide to enroll into this training. And everything else is in here, like module 1, customers and shippers. Let's go there for a second. Customers, I think I was in there for a minute. So this is module 1. This is the first module, but there's other things that you can read before that. But the first module, there's a YouTube video on it, and then it talks about, your niche. It goes over the 4 R's again. It has a sample broker shipper agreement in here, okay? If you watch the video, I can't remember how long the video is. Let me click it for a second. Okay, it's a 15-minute video about this particular module. And then other, dealing with carriers or dealing with customers and shippers. I think this is shippers. So, shipper website resources, dealing with shippers, cold calling, getting past the gatekeeper, sample call script. I may put Mr. Nelson's script in there because it's more up to date. Okay. Any questions, guys? Any questions? I thought I saw Ms. Brown saying something, but I can't hear her. Can you unmute yourself?
I said, no, I received a lot of great information from this training tonight. A lot of great information.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm happy.
I will take some more courses with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just whenever you're ready, whenever you decide. There's no pressure. Take your time. This training is not going anywhere. So just whenever and you can connect with us too. Connect with us, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. All these buttons, if you click, it goes to all those my different pages and links, and you can join them. I have a Freight Broker 101 YouTube page. I have a Dispatcher 101 YouTube page. My Dispatcher YouTube page has over 150 plus free videos. Free. Did I say free?
Oh my goodness.
So Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, Twitter handles, Instagram. So, and then we got over here our different enrollment services, ebook specials, consultations, referrals, ongoing training, which is probably what you guys want, and then freight broker seminar training. So quit yawning. That's contagious.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
But yeah, hopefully I've answered the questions. I'd like to thank you guys for coming in. Ontario Adams, it's the first time I've seen you. Any questions?
Well, I mean, I follow you kind of on Facebook as well. You know, I'm you know, kind of new to this brokerage, so I'm trying to just figure it out a little bit.
Okay.
So I mean, I'll be chiming in on you. You know, this is my first time just kind of logging into the class with you online, you know, live or whatever. So I mean, I've been following a couple of your videos on YouTube or whatever.
On the dispatching side or the freight broker side?
The freight broker side.
Okay.
My question was, I was just trying to figure out as far as the LTL, moving freight for LTL. I mean, how do you just figure the rates or whatever?
Mr. Nelson, you want to take that one, Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, I can take that one. LTL is a complex and complicated thing to move, but it can be lucrative while moving it. Because LTL moves in about 18 different classes. And in doing so, I mean, there's tools online now to where when you, with the customer and he has LTL freight to move, you can use rating tools. I use one on Freight Run. And what you basically do, you're going to move LTL freight because it moves by size, density, stackability, ease of handling, and density. So when you're moving LTL freight, you have to come up with a classification that's going to fall into. And to do so, like I say, you use different freighting tools. And the thing about LTL freight, and I'll tell anybody this that decides they want to move it and quote a customer. You're going to quote that customer, and a lot of times it's left up to that customer to class his own freight. But if he doesn't class that freight, an LTL carrier does pick it up, if that's the route that you choose to go, that LTL carrier is going to weigh it, and you have to be careful in the rate that you give that shipper, because it is subject to change once it hits an LTL dock, because he may class it wrong. It may not fit into the category that he has it into, and they're going to change the classification on it. But it can be very lucrative because, well, I'll give you an example. Say, for instance, you take a full truckload, 26 pallets. You're taking a trip of 256 miles with it, weighs 42,000 pounds. That truckload may pay anywhere between $500 to $700. Okay, you take a truckload of LTL freight, which is normally going to be anywhere between 35, 45, 56 pallets, because it's stacked tight from top to bottom, front to back. It's going to travel that same 256 miles. That full truckload of LTL freight may be anywhere between $44 to $5,500.
Okay.
So it just depends on what you're picking up, what you're moving. I mean, one pallet, if it's a class 50 and it weighs, 800-900 pounds, hell, it may pay $700, just as much as that full truckload.
Okay.
So it can be complex, it can be complicated, but you can make a ton of money with it if you learn the game with it.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to figure out. The LTS. I mean, it's kind of a little complicated for me right now, but I just been kind of trying to follow other guys, and as far as learning the LTL side of it, because I know you can make money with LTL if you know.
Well, Log On, and you can pull up their calculator. Also, CH Roberts has one,
okay,
which is basically free, just to get an idea, concept of what going to happen. Because what's going to happen is once you once you hit that send button, it's going to bring you back about 6 different LTL carriers, rate, time, date, shipment time, whether it's a 2-day delivery, 3-day delivery, and that gets up basically, what you need to do with that, because the LTL freight is unlike any other freight. It moves by the cubic inch.
Yeah.
So any little space in a truck that freight's going to fill up, they're going to try to cover every inch of space in a trailer. And you also run into trouble when it comes to volume shipping as far as LTL, because a lot of LTL carriers don't want to pick up 8, 12 pallets. But if it's going in the same route, and this is the way as a broker, you can get it moved. If it's going in the same lane, if you get that shipper, say he got 8 pallets, if you can get that shipper to break that up into 4 different shipments or 3 different shipments, then that LTL carrier do that, because if it's going on the same lane, it's going to the same destination, then what he'll do, he'll take it back to his dock. He'll put 2 pallets of it or 3 pallets on his 7 o'clock cut. He'll put the other 3 on his 8 o'clock cut. He'll put the other 3 on his 9 o'clock cut. They'll all get there before 6 o'clock in the morning. They'll put them back together and they'll deliver them to the carrier, to the shipper. To the consignee. So it's, it can be moved.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure, I just want to get knowledge of it, and I just don't want to just be trying to just move. I know a lot of people, the food truck or whatever, but like you say, I want to run back and forth. I'm trying to, I want to figure the LTL side out as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's an insight to it.
Yeah. Good luck to you. Good luck to you.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Brown, you got your hand up?
I didn't want to interrupt. What is LTL freight?
It's
What
less
is
than
that?
less than truckload. LTL stands for less than truckload. It's like partials. So if you got a trailer, 53-foot trailer, and it's not a full trailer, FTL, full truckload, anything other than that is less than truckload or partial. Okay. So a full 53-foot trailer, I think it gets 26 pallets in there, 48 by 40s. Yeah. So
yeah,
26.
Yeah, 26 pallets.
Yep. So, but LTLs are less than truckload, Miss Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, less than truckloads or partials. Yep. All right. Good class tonight. Good training tonight.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Hopefully, you got some broker training. Hopefully, I was just as good as the other trainings.
But I kind of chimed in on the back end of it. I didn't get to catch the beginning of it.
Okay. Yeah, but I think you got your information though. Hopefully, this is going to be.
Got it.
It's recorded. It's going to be in our back office for our members only. I may put this one on YouTube. I may, because I have so many guests, so you guys can go in there and look at it. I may just do that. It's not a problem. So I'll put it in the back office and I'll put it on YouTube so you guys can. So if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe to Freight Broker.
Yeah, I subscribe.
Yeah, Freight Broker. Yeah, Freight Broker 101 trainer for beginners. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Freight Broker 101.
Yeah, on YouTube, or you can just click on the website, the YouTube button. It takes you directly to the page. There you go, bing, and then you just hit subscribe. I try to make everything user friendly, right? So.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. I ain't gonna hold you up. I'm gonna do like Miss Brown and go to sleep because she yawning. It's contagious.
I'm sorry. Don't be busting me out like that. I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Charles, I'll get with you Friday.
Okay, sir. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Let me put my for those of you who guess, I'm gonna put my contact information and email in there if you want to get a hold of me. I don't know if you have questions about joining or just questions in general.
I do.
and my email for you guys. So the earliest, try to call me after 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you have any questions, if it's important tonight, send me a text before 9. I can get with you. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Have a good evening. The next freight broker, I don't know if I'll bring guests in on Friday, but yeah, it's more intermediate and advanced freight broker. Then you'll probably just come in and listen because we're dealing with other brokers up there that's more further along. But you guys are welcome to come in. You know, it's fine. I'll probably just allow 2, guests come in twice before you guys decide to sign up. So, all right.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a good evening. Be
You
safe.
too.